Ambassador for this mountain state, who has dedicated herself to service, leadership, and inspiring others. As Miss West Virginia, Courtney Bear has traveled around our state representing West Virginians with grace, intelligence, and a commitment to making a positive difference in the lives of others and truly being the heart of West Virginia. This morning, she joins us to share her experiences, her platform, and the lessons that she has learned through leadership and service. Please join me this morning in welcoming Miss West Virginia, Miss Courtney Bear.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that kind introduction. How are we doing today? Good? All right. I am very thankful to be here today as Miss West Virginia. Now, actually, let's raise our hands. Who knows anything about the Miss America organization? All right. We got one lucky contender over there. So before I get started, I will tell you a little bit about my job as Miss West Virginia. So before I was Miss West Virginia, I was Miss Morgantown. Now, you compete in phases of competition at a local level, at a state level, and at a national level. So at Miss Morgantown, you compete in a business interview. You talk for 10 minutes straight. They can ask you pretty much any question you want. Now, it's not like your normal conversation where you ask a question, they ask a question. It is rapid fire. Anything they want you to talk about, they ask you and you answer it. So this 10-minute business interview, you have fitness, on-stage question. So once again, on stage, answering 2 questions, anything these judges would like to ask you, evening gown, and talent. So my talent was actually hula hooping. I grew up dancing. I started when I was 2 years old and started hula hooping when I was 7. Now I see a couple chuckles, and I get that a lot of people thinking I stand up here and hula hoop around my waist for a couple minutes, but if once you have your phones, and if you want to look up my hula hooping video, you can watch it on YouTube, my Miss America video. But for context, I have 4 hula hoops at once, and that's all I'll say with that. But I started that when I was about 7 years old, and I don't think I thought hula hooping would take me where I am today. Now, I started at 7 after going to a circus and seeing someone hang from a trapeze and hula hooping, and 7-year-old me thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I got a hula hoop and I started working hard, and I would have never thought that it would have taken me to Miss America. Now, who's a fan of football out here? Also you. All right, thank you. Now, I'll give you a little stat here. You are more likely to have a son compete in the Super Bowl than you are to have a daughter compete at Miss America. So think about that again. You are more likely to have a son compete in the Super Bowl, to play in the Super Bowl, than to have a daughter compete at Miss America. So I was able to compete at Miss America after winning the title of Miss West Virginia back in June. You guys caught me at the end of my year, so I was crowned Miss West Virginia last June, and I will give up my title in a little over a week. So June 20th is when I give up my title as Miss West Virginia. But throughout my year, my main goal has been to spread leadership, to spread positivity, and to spread my initiative of heart health. So my community service initiative is called Connecting with Cardio, and it was all inspired by my mother, who had a heart attack when she was just 41 years old. And I remember being at a community service event that day. I was volunteering for the Children's Miracle Network Hospital, and my grandma called me, and I was just 14 years old, and she says to me, "Your mother had a heart attack." And I remember hearing her stutter, not knowing how to get those words across to a 14-year-old, or let alone to anyone. When you hear heart attack, your mind immediately thinks the worst, and 14-year-old me didn't really know anything about heart health. So I remember being so scared, my mind went to the worst, hoping that I would get to the hospital and my mom would be okay that day. So my dad drove me, and by the time I got to the hospital, my mom had 1 stent in and was out of surgery, and she was in recovery, which I am so thankful for. And it's up to every individual and people like those at her work to be able to spot the symptoms and to spot the signs of heart disease. It is the #1 killer of both men and women. Can I also get a show of hands of everyone who knows someone in their life who has been impacted by heart disease? Thank you. So it does affect not only my family, but a lot of families out here today. And I think we've gotten into this pattern of just assuming that heart disease is inevitable, that it's going to happen to everyone, but that really isn't the case. About 80% of all heart disease cases are preventable. And I think that really motivates me to understand that we can take care of our bodies, whether it's through the food that we're fueling our bodies, or for me, throughout being Miss West Virginia, I've been able to teach gym classes and teach little kids how to hula hoop, which has been one of the biggest lights of my year, but it really is preventable. And I think people kind of have this black or white mentality that you need to eat all of the vegetables you possibly can, run 10 miles a day, you need to drink all the water that you possibly can, but it really isn't a black or white mentality. You can have little things throughout your life that make your health better, to make your heart happy is always what I say. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. So as Miss West Virginia, that has been my main goal, is to go to every appearance pretty much under the sun, or that's what it has felt like, in talking to people of all ages about heart health. I always try to tell them that it can be fun, it doesn't need to be scary. That's why I kind of tied in hula hooping into this, that you can find something that you enjoy and make a difference with it. So for you, maybe it is heart disease is your passion as well and spreading awareness for it, or maybe it is something else. I want you to find your strengths of things that you are good at and tie them in. So I would have never thought at 7 years old I would have used my talent of hula hooping to make a difference in the world of heart disease, but that has been my reality. So I encourage you all to find something that you're passionate about to make a difference, but using those strengths and things that make you different to make it memorable. Now, I was in a parade once. I live in Morgantown for context, and I was in the southern part of our state, and I was in a parade, and this family points at me and they go, "There's the hula hoop girl," and their whole family starts doing the hula hoop motion. Now, that's pretty silly, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. But when I thought about it, I'm okay with being known as the hula hoop girl. If you think about hula hooping and it ties your mind back to heart health, that is fine with me. Now, hula hooping was something, when I started it, people always thought it was weird, and I know you guys probably will too, maybe until you watch my video, or maybe you won't, that's up to you. But I had some kickback at times because I grew up dancing. I was on the WVU dance team for 4 years, and there were many people that always asked me, "Courtney, why don't you dance for your talent? That's pretty common." And I always said I wanted to be different and I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. When I started competing, when I was a teen, there were lots of influences, just like you all have. Do you have a lot of people in your life telling you what to do? All right, all adults, plug your ears. We know it's true. There's a lot of influence in your life and a lot of people that are going to tell you what to do. But at the end of the day, you need to come back to your mind and figure out what makes you happy and what your strengths are. Now, for me, that was hula hooping, and it is probably a weird strength to have, but I've used it to my advantage to make a difference in the heart health community. And I will leave you with one final thing of something that I have learned this year, is to work hard regardless of the case. So when I started when I was 7 at hula hooping, and I was terrible at it, I did not give up and I kept persisting, but I took a break from competing in the Miss America organization when I was maybe 16 or so, and then I took 6 years off and I competed at Miss Morgantown, and I went from Miss Morgantown to competing at Miss America in just 6 months. But there were some things along the way that made me think that the world was trying to give me a sign that I should stop. Now, the first competition got postponed, and the week before Miss West Virginia, my mom also has epilepsy. She had one of her biggest seizures the week before Miss West Virginia. She was out at the bottom of her driveway cutting hedges and had a seizure and ended up in the middle of the road. And I am very thankful to those bystanders that stopped the car and were able to help her. But in my mind, I thought I was the one stressing her out. I was ready to pull everything away and stop competing for Miss West Virginia. And she encouraged me that that was not the case. So I'm very happy that I listened to her. Another note is listen to your family, friends, and anyone above you who knows a thing or two. So I continued on, and I'm very thankful I did, because I would not be standing here today. And I really do appreciate your time, and I would like to open the floor up to any questions. You can ask me anything. Yes, sir. A good competitive dancer. I actually went to a performing arts school growing up, so I did have to audition to get into that school, so I'm gonna say yes. And then competing, well, for the WVU dance team, you have to audition for that. That's a D1 collegiate program, so I was a dancer on that. We would do WVU football games, basketball games. We won a national championship in Daytona, Florida, and I was the president of the WVU dance team, so yes. Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I am getting at the end of my year. Like I said, next week I will give up my title. And throughout being Miss West Virginia, I visited all 55 West Virginia counties. I've traveled 32,000 miles this year and over 225 appearances, all varying interests and varying topics that I've helped out with. But I appreciate that. That was very sweet of you. Any other questions? Any questions from you, Chris? Oh, yes, sorry. Oh.
What made you want to compete for Miss West Virginia?
Yeah. I started competing in pageants when I was 7 years old, and they weren't your toddlers and tiara pageants. They were ones they would actually come up with a Q-tip and swab your face to make sure you had no makeup on until you were about 13 or so. So that's what I started out in. The very first pageant I entered, I got a letter in the mail about this local competition, and my mom said, Courtney, you can go to Disney or you can compete in this competition. And silly me said, oh, I want to compete in the competition. It was probably a picture of a princess, and I said, sold. So I competed in it. All these girls had tons of experience and expensive dresses, and I came in with the JCPenney Flower Girl dress. I ended up winning, I don't know how, but I went to the national competition that year, and it was in Disney, and I think 7-year-old me said, oh, I got the best of both worlds. I think I like this. But when I was 13, I was able to compete in the Miss America organization for the first time. But at that age, I had a lot of influential factors in my life. People tried getting me to work with coaches and different individuals that were trying to help me, but at the end of the day, they were telling me to be different things than I was. They were trying to tell me things to say when I would go into an interview. They'd say, oh, I think the judges would appreciate if you said this for this answer. So I kind of turned into a little version of myself that was a robot, and I became something that I really wasn't. So I wanted to take a break. So I took a break for about 6 years. And then after I graduated college, I graduated in 2024, and then I was bored. Since I was on the dance team, I had an internship, I was a full-time student, I decided that I wanted to compete again. So I competed for Miss Morgantown, and then the rest was history. So it was all kind of out of boredom, I will say. Very thankful I did. Any other questions? Yes. And cut me off whenever I... Sorry, could you repeat that? Okay, the question was, do I have any intentions of replicating the trapeze act that I saw when I was 7 years old at a circus? I will say that it's on my bucket list, so if anyone knows of anyone that has a trapeze, I will check that off of my bucket list. I also would like to have fire hula hoops, so if anyone knows anyone with that as well, probably after next week, so then I can be a little dangerous, I suppose. You know someone?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, thank you. He has it all. All right, anything else? Yes. Good question. I do get this a lot. Can you run for Miss West Virginia again? You cannot. So once you become Miss West Virginia, Miss Ohio, Miss Hawaii, Miss Texas, Miss anything at a state level, you cannot compete again. So you can be 18 to 28 years old to compete for Miss West Virginia or to compete in the Miss America organization. So once you get to that level and you compete at Miss America, even if I moved to another state, I could never compete for Miss America again. Miss America is the largest scholarship provider for women in the country, so being Miss West Virginia, I've earned close to $10,000 to pay off my undergrad. So after I'm done with this year, I've paid off a lot on my own, but I will be completely debt-free from undergrad, which is very exciting. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. time. It has been a pleasure to speak with you all, and I'm very happy to be with you before my year closes out. So thank you again for your time and your kindness.